Welcome to Lipstick Attitude, hosted by Dr. Elizabeth King, psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, author, and motivational speaker, specializing in trauma and women's mental health, and Yvonne Haase, psychotherapist and coach specializing in relationships, couples, and women's issues. This show is your dose of inspiration, information, and laughter. In each episode, Dr. King and Yvonne bring you hacks, tips, and inspiring stories to help you live a successful life. So ladies, grab your lipstick. It's time to do this. The Lipstick Attitude podcast is powered by Suit Stilettos and Lipstick Foundation, a nonprofit movement to empower women and children from all walks of life to be resilient, self-confident, and purposeful leaders through education, mentorship, and community outreach. To learn more, visit sslwomen.org. Please note that this show is intended to empower and educate. It is not meant to be utilized as a substitute for individual therapy.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is another episode of the Lipstick Attitude podcast, and I'm Dr. Elizabeth King with my co-host Yvonne Haase. And today we have a very special guest, Kinja Dixon, one of our great friends and sassy cats, and we just love him to pieces. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Honored to be here. Thank you for your time and the invite.
Well, thank you for saying yes. How are you doing, Yvonne?
I am fabulous. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you again, Kinja.
Likewise. Good to be seen and to see some smiles in the middle of this unique time in our world's history.
Yeah. Oh. And gosh, it's so tough out there. I love the topic that we're going to be speaking about, the art of recreation. God knows so many people are having to pivot right now, including us, in so many different ways. So when we talk about recreation and how to do that, I think you're the master of it. And I think you will really help a lot of us find our way in our path to get there. So I'm thrilled to have you this morning. So Yvonne, why don't you kick it off right away? I don't want to waste 1 second. So let's go ahead and kick it off by introducing our honor guest right here.
Awesome. Well, everybody, please welcome Mr. Kinja Dixon. He is a recreation strategist, 2013's #1 sales executive in the world, retired at 34 to explore his next phase. Kinja's journey transformed from a financially independent 300-pound alcoholic worker bee to a daily meditating, marathon running, completely sober, 170-pound servant to our humanity. Since 2014, his 3 books, online training program, and one-man theatrical experience are just a few of the tools that are helping thousands of seekers across the globe recreate their living experiences. And just on a personal note, I have to tell you a couple things. One very funny story, how we met Mr. Dixon here. He essentially got picked up by one of our very sassy ladies who was in desperate need.
Held hostage,
I believe, who was in desperate need to get to one of our events, as she was the president of it, and you cannot be late, meets this man, talks her into driving her to this event, not only driving her to the event, but coming to the event as well. And I have to tell you, this man showed up, beautiful smile, great character, and just the whole story just speaks volumes to who he is as a man and as a friend. And he might be a little crazy too, because if you knew the president, you'd be like, you put who in your car? What? I'm just kidding.
I don't think he had a choice.
I don't think he had a choice either. But he is also, for those of you who have been to our conference, he has been in our Men in the Hot Seat panel in 2017. And I have to say, just personally, I'm not going to tell you what the answer was, but he gave one of my all-time favorite responses to the question of, if you were a woman for a day, what would you do? So, yeah, do you remember that, Kinja?
Wow, I don't remember exactly the answer, but I could imagine. I would love to hear what I said.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. If you don't remember the answer, you could go to our video, because we actually, in our highlight video, put that little piece in there because it was hilarious. Wow. So the world has seen and heard you answer that question. I'm going to send that to you. You're going to crack up on what you answered.
I cannot wait. Please.
You're going to love it.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
Without further ado, the man with the infectious smile and with such a beautiful heart and soul, Mr. Kinja Dixon.
Blessings, blessings, blessings. Wow.
Again, thank you so much for saying yes to being on this podcast. You have such an amazing story, and I know you've written many books and are out there speaking and sharing your message with so many folks. When we first met you, you were, I think it was around 2013, 2014. You were on a different journey than you are right now. You have now branded yourself as a recreation strategist. And I'm just curious to know how you went from where you were then to where you are now. Because I thought you were a recreation strategist, even without that title. Back then, you reinvented yourself. So it's so perfect. But what made you go from one to the other, and what has happened and gotten you here?
It's amazing when I reflect, and for entrepreneurs, you know, I made a choice in 2013, October 12th. So in a few days will be 7 years from the day that I went into my manager's office as one of the top sales executives and said, I am going to resign to jump into this next world. I finished a book, and I'm not in a position where I believe it's fair to this part of my journey to continue in the sales world. So October 12th, I retired. And the first goal and ways I was being hired was as a sales expert, because that previous in that year is when I received the 2 awards that branded me as the 2013 #1 sales executive in the world. And what ended up happening in that first year, as I was getting hired at all these corporate events, is there was an inner conflict with some of the events that I left. And to paint the picture clear, I was being hired as this sales expert, but over the years from 2009 to the time when I retired, I was working on things that had to do with my health, my emotional intelligence, hunger to gain new knowledge, and mastering my purpose. And the effect of that ended up increasing my sales performance, but I wouldn't necessarily blame that on me mastering how to sell. It actually came from a benefit of me working on myself. And the more I was able to master myself, it helped me be able to relate to all the people that I was recommending these solutions when it came to their vacation and real estate needs. So what ended up happening about a year and a half after my retirement is I felt that I needed to step away from this mode of just going, running, doing all these consultations, getting in front of all these crowds. And honestly, there was a time where I had a conversation with someone that was going to hire me, and the way they were talking at me about what they wanted me to share was not in alignment with my message. And I could not blame them because I was labeled as the sales expert. And if someone sees that, their goal is, I want to get this guy in front of these people so he can teach them how to sell. And that's not how my process went. So I actually took about a year off. I went to China, did some meditating in the mountains with some, some yogis, and got my life together. And when I came back from that trip, October 2015, and started my meditation practice, I had so many ideas that had to do with the 4 things that I worked on every single day since 2009, which were my health, my emotional intelligence, hunger to gain new knowledge, and getting better at my purpose. And that's when recreationism came into play. First, it was the play Recreation Encounter. Then one day I had the idea of this book, The Manual, which is recreationism. And ever since that, I have now been more in alignment with this part of my journey, because even though I do get hired to teach communication and wellness and how to present yourself, it's more than sales. It's about life development, because what ends up happening when people just master sales, if you start getting a lot of income, but you're not emotionally prepared to deal with that income, that could end up expediting your death. And you might not even realize it. Not even your emotional death, but your financial death by buying all these things because of this increase in income. So I'm now helping people realize how to do the slow roll. But when you really take time away from it, I believe that it's what plants do. It's what everything in nature does. It just grows and grows and grows and stays present and doesn't allow what happened yesterday to really impede what's going on today and what's going on in the future. So now I'm in my recreationist, blossoming seed mode.
I love it. You know, interestingly enough, what you just said about, you know, selling, making money, that doesn't make you happy. And we actually did a podcast not too long ago, and I do a lot of presentations on the equation of happiness. It's 50% genetics, 40% is attitude, and only 10% is life circumstances. And the research shows that people that win like the lottery, or someone that had a severe accident and became paraplegic, within 5 years, the person that won the lottery is less happy than the person that became paraplegic. So we know for a fact that money does not make happiness, and it certainly does not make you want to continue to be a thriver. So I appreciate what you just said so much, and I know this to be true. It's science, really. So thank you for getting to that place and helping others get there, because I think that's where the missing link is. A lot of people think, oh, you know, I'm just going to make a lot of money and you know, I'll be happy, you know, and they're always going after that carrot, and happiness never happens. So I think what you have to say in your message is so appropriate and something that I'm very passionate about as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that when they're chasing the money too, they're putting all the other pillars that you were discussing on the back burner, you know, and they become just, they have this tunnel vision for it, you know, for sure. So Kinja, then after, you know, choosing to embark on what seems like a totally different journey after 14 years and a career field you were breaking records in, this new world, what has it taught you about yourself?
Wow, it taught me so many things. One of the most important, I believe, is that your purpose is not a set destination. And each of us have unique possibilities within our DNA structure that, if nurtured, you can create things that have not been created. So just like that transition that I went through, the many transitions I went through within the last 7 years, I did catch myself at first trying to be like others that are in the limelight, you know, like without me knowing anything about author, speaker, you know, being this person that's being hired to get some type of reference. I did look at what was going on, and for a minute what happened was I followed things that weren't in my specific DNA as Kinja. But when you work on these things and you're so aware, you're quick to feel that discomfort, and not discomfort from a point of working too hard, but a discomfort from not being in alignment with who you are. And being able to identify that and contort something that fits what you're doing. So that's one of the things that I learned, is that when you embark on a journey, it's okay to look at others that are doing it well, to get inspiration and take ideas, but try to make sure you don't get into a position where you end up copying something that is not yours, your benefit,
it's not you.
your unique fingerprint. And so that's one of the things. And the second thing is that, and this is the basic, is that what a lot of people don't know about my situation that has given me freedom is that when I was 24, after my first 4 years with a Fortune 500 company, MCI WorldCom, they had a close down. And so at 24 years old, I saw the ending result of several people that had worked for a company making 80, 90,000 a year, and then all of a sudden find out in 3 months, this entire operation is shut down. And so when I saw all of these people that were crying and upset, in my mind, I just kept thinking as a 24-year-old, why are they so upset if they've been making all this money for so long? Well, it just happened that one of the days that I had that light bulb, coming outside, a gentleman was driving by, asked 3 of us, what happened with MCI? We told him, and he told me something that I want y'all to listen to, because I swear it changed my life. And I look back on that day, like if that day wouldn't have happened, I don't know if I would be here right now. But he said, young men, you might want to read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that expresses how if you don't learn how to work for yourself, you're always going to be at the mercy of the decisions of the people that run the company. So when I started reading that book, and getting smacked across the face with the knowledge of Robert Kiyosaki, and seeing how much that was different from my thinking I'm just going to work every week for a check mentality, it taught me the difference between assets and liabilities and how to live below your means and buy things off of a percentage. Never buy things that are over the amount of a certain net worth. It goes into a lot of calculations, but make a long story short, when I started with Wyndham Fairfield at the time and went from 80,000 a year with MCI to 300,000-400,000 a year, I was saving 90% of everything that I made.
Wow.
I mean, every single year. So I was in a position by the time I retired in 2013 where money was no longer a motivating factor because I had saved more than I would ever need. So I say that to say, when I started this entrepreneurial journey, I was not chasing money. I was chasing creativity and purpose. And that's something that I believe all entrepreneurs need to think about. Like, put yourself in a position where you don't overextend yourself so that you have to become a carrot chaser, like you mentioned, where you don't have time to create, you don't have time to reflect, you don't have time to master, because with your life, with your wife, your husband, with bills, with pandemics, with all of these things, if you are in a position where you're financially strapped, dealing with all of those things as well, you almost become a product of the society versus a product of your genetic makeup. So to sum it up, because I went a lot of places, is your purpose is not stagnant. It can evolve. And before you go on your own, try to put yourself in a position where you live beneath your means and have a nice, good cushion of money that it would even be better if it's invested. I've been investing for 12 years as well. But do not come out here where you just have nothing to fall back on. I mean, just basic math and, economics.
That is such a powerful message right there, because, people see like yourself or see Yvonne and me doing what we love. And everybody wants to jump on that bandwagon. Everybody wants to do what they love. And then they leave their careers and then they can't afford to do what you set out to do. So then they can live their purpose because they're struggling just to make ends meet on the financial end. And I always talk about this. It's like, yes, be a dreamer and dream big, but make sure that you have the functional pieces together, the parts that are going to allow you to fulfill your dream and your calling. Because if you can't pay for food, you're going to be, Maslow hierarchy of human needs. You're going to be talking about food. You cannot be talking about self-actualization when you can't pay your bills. So I think your message is so on point for so many women and men that are listening to this program. Yeah, go ahead and dream big, but make sure you have a strategy to fulfill that dream. You can't just go and do this, just because, and quit your job and then what? Then what happens? Exactly. So I so appreciate that. Kinja, on a personal note, we talked about this in preparation for this show, and we've talked about this actually even before the preparation for the show, and it's very It's a very interesting, intimate question, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because we are raw and we are unapologetically asking the questions as people want to hear them.
And we're nosy.
And we're
Just
nosy.
Well, just throwing it in there.
Can you see my heart beating through the shirt?
I don't know what this is about, but you will see. You've talked several times with me about this. For 5 years, you've been celibate, and not for religious reasons, which I find fascinating to understand your rationale behind that. Can you share that a little bit with us?
I went through stages as far as sexual interaction has went with the powerful, dynamic, and leader of our humanity, the female, the woman.
There we go.
And now you know why he's on this show, ladies.
And there we go. I love you right now.
I'm serious. So you know, went through my teenage years, my trying to be a player years, then I transitioned into the monogamous world. And what I found out in 2016 over those years is, as I've been increasing value within myself and learning that loneliness is a choice, it's something that humans made up. It's something that you really can't be once you become connected spiritually with all that is. With the mixture of that and honestly having my heart broken in 2012, and then having a friendship that turned into a relationship in 2014, 2015, 2016, what that last relationship did, to be clear, is I had one of the best friendships that turned into a relationship that I had in my life. And what happened was that as I'm traveling, we had to have a conversation, because when we started that relationship, she knew I was speaking and not in Virginia as much because I had a home in New York and I was traveling the world. But honestly, she said she could not continue the long distance relationship deal. Like she thought she could, but talking to me on the phone for all hours of the night and not having me there was something that was emotionally draining. So in February of that year, 2016, when actually April 2016 is when we went our separate ways. And the pain that I endured during that process was like a positive pain, because it wasn't infidelity. It was a situation where we just kind of grew apart, because I was not about to just stop my purpose for that relationship, which also meant that our priorities weren't actually in line, which no matter how you look at it, it was going to end up causing friction in the long run. But as I went through the reflection on that process, the first few months, it was just me preparing myself mentally and wondering how I got there. And because I work on my pillars so much, before I knew it, 6 months turned into a year. You know what I mean? I'm writing books, I'm creating plays, I'm serving at a higher level. Yeah. And literally last year, February, I was like, wow, it's been 4 years. So this February of 2021, it'll be 5 years where I have not had sexual relations or even really been on dates with a female. So it's not something that I could have planned, similar to how I did plan to have my last drink October 31st, 2009, but I didn't predict that I knew I was never going to drink again. I just said I'm going to go day by day. And I guess in this world of growing myself, I'm just in a position where I'm so full within my pillars that I'm not against having another friendship form that may turn into a long-term relationship, but I'm in a position where I'm filling myself from the inside out instead of from the outside in. So I'm not in a position where I think I might be, really that's the answer. So I couldn't have planned on this, but all I know is that I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I know that what I've done within my insides, when I do bump into that magnetic attraction, she will get the best of me, and I will know that she's adding to a cup that's already full versus me grasping for something to fill a void. You with me? And I will honestly say that it's the best I'm at the best place I've ever been in my life, because I could not have imagined that there would be a part of my journey where 5 years and I'm in my best health. I'm in the best place I've ever been. I do sometimes get approached in ways that I think are kind of, women, if they flirt, and they can flirt, you know what I mean? So sometimes I'll have a conversation, but I know how to draw my boundaries. I know how to not put myself in any position that is going to skip any steps. And I'm just, at a place where I'm just extremely happy, and I'm also hoping that people can see, wow, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, you can release those endorphins in ways that don't include a release. Like, you can be a healthy person without letting your animal control you. It's almost to a point where I didn't mention this for some years because I felt like it would damage me because of this man thing that we put out here. But in reality, a man, just because you like unfortunately, and I have to say this real quick, I believe that the title of father or mother has much more to do with just creating a baby. You with me? Right. We have Mother's Day, Father's Day. You get around, because I had a night at the club where I got drunk and, I'm now a father. Yay! No, you know what I mean? Like, but I give all people respect that went through this, but I'm just in a position where I want to do it the way that's organic and like a seed, where it can be a long-lasting situation where we both can fill each other's cups, we can grow, no conflict, but conflict from a standpoint that we can both manage, but nothing where I end up with that ball and chain mentality where I'm not really happy from the inside out. I hope that answers the question.
No, it did. And I wanted to bring that up, and I know it's a little bit on the left field, but this is why I wanted to bring that up, is because I think that when people are trying to find themselves, when they're trying to recreate themselves or reinvent themselves, I think they get stuck on a lot of stigma of what society wants from them. And I think what you're saying here, and I think it's such an important point and so powerful, is that you have to find your way. Mm-hmm. And maybe your way is different than somebody else's way, exactly. And that's okay. Yes. And don't be afraid to say it and speak your truth, whatever it is. Yes. I think that's the message that is so powerful here, is that, as you are going through this thing called life, this journey called life, we all have our own different paths and we have different choices, but we get so, I think, pressured into what society wants, and especially with social media, everybody's doing this, or we need to do that. And you're saying, no, you don't have to follow the flock. You can be yourself. You can be who you are and find your truth and speak your truth and not be afraid of it.
Amen.
Unapologetically.
And be an example for that gentleman that realizes, wow, I don't really feel like going to the bar, but I'm gonna go because they, everybody else is going. No, you don't have to go to the bar, man. You can stay at the house and study, or do something different and be okay, man. It's okay. And still have those friends. Y'all are just meet at the gym or outside somewhere else. Or you could go to the bar and not drink or not be pressured. I actually had a scenario where me and a friend ended up not being friends anymore because he invited me to meet him somewhere. This was a few years ago, and it was him and two young ladies there. And because of my lack of communication with the other lady, because there wasn't a connection there. After it was done, he was like, "Man, why you didn't? That she wanted you." We actually got into an argument because I was not just picking up the, what is it, like being that wingman to, I was not, that's not me. That's not what I do. I'm in my mid-30s, man. Like, if I'm not interested, I can be a friend, but I'm not about to just do something to put my body on the line as a sacrificial lamb. When you have,
I've never heard of it that way.
I've never heard of a double date as something more like going to a slaughterhouse, but I'm feeling you on this, Kinja. I got it.
There we go. That's hilarious, Kinja. I've never heard of it that way. That's great.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, personal question number 2, my friend, but don't worry, it's not as personal as the hot seat, because you have spoken about this before, in fact, at one of our events, that you referred to yourself as a functioning alcoholic. And now, as you said a moment ago, you're going on 11 years of sobriety. Number one, congratulations.
Yeah,
But
congrats. That's amazing.
how did you know that you were an alcoholic, and like what changes came about when you decided to let go of drinking?
This is a really quick, simple answer. The way I knew I was a functional alcoholic is because in order for my nights I sold at least 2 to 3 times a week. And there was always celebrations. And at every celebration, I had to have alcohol. There was not a time that celebration was involved where alcohol wasn't a part of my celebration therapy. And the reason why I ended up stopping is because in 2009, February, I was 305 pounds, high trainer nutritionist. I lost all of this weight by following his protocol, but I still was doing well and still celebrating. And what I'm so glad the universe did is, as I'm taking all this mass away from my body, but still drinking the same, my inebriations weren't as enjoyable as they were. I was getting, there was a lot of throwing up involved and a lot of sickness. And I'm like, what's happening? And it got to a point where I realized that the tolerance that I had was for a human that was not present anymore. And it got to a point where I realized, wow, it's rough, but I don't think I can do this because I don't enjoy it anymore. I wasn't a social, let's have a cup of wine type person. I was a let me feel good type person, and it wasn't it wasn't in alignment with who I physically was. So what I learned as I went through the journey, the first trip I went on to Dominican Republic with 3 other single fellas in an all-inclusive resort, when I had the best time of my life and I was the only one that was sober the whole time, I realized, wow, I can do this. And then also seeing how they were acting the fool, I was like, wow, that's how I act when I get out of here. So as I went along this journey, I just realized, wow, number one, sometimes I don't think hangovers and the things that we think are cool that come with alcohol use or abuse, I don't think that should be something that if you're going through that as a person, that's a signal that the universe is saying you might want to slow down. And then secondly, if you do get to a point where your genetics don't allow you to socially drink like so many people without doing it overboard, if you see that you need it and you can't just have a cup, I would help that person consider slowing down and seeing how you feel. And yeah, it's going to feel awkward at first because there were a couple social events where I was the only one not drinking. But over the course of time, as I released that energy into working out, studying, learning about emotional intelligence, it's now a point in my life where I'm proud of it. I can be around people that are drinking and enjoy their company. And I'm not getting on those soapbox talking about anything. My journey, like you said, is my journey. And if someone wants to learn how to do it, I can help them. But if not, it's all good. I just definitely recommend all people that do drink to just ensure that drinking doesn't become a form of therapy. Because at the end of the day, alcohol in our body is not something that is supposed to be there. So you don't want to be in a position where your therapy includes something that's detrimental to your long-term ability to live on this gift of life, where I don't care what you're doing in the next life. We want to try to take full advantage of this life. And that's just a vivid reality. So it feels good. And I'm honored to be able to experience this level of life right now.
I think your journey speaks volumes about really beating to your own drum and not allowing the social pressures overcome you and dictate what you do. And I think that's what I'm hearing loud and clear over and over again. And you speaking about it just makes it really very, I don't know, obtainable and, something that people need to consider. So I so appreciate you being so honest and sharing such personal decisions that you've had to make along the way. I'm going to pivot to a different type of a question. So, you know, and you and I talk a lot, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I want you to share with our listeners and audience about how you wrote a children's book, because obviously what you have to say, adults are going, wow, that's pretty powerful. But how do you go from what your message is to writing a children's book, and a children's book on superpowers? It's called, what is it, Lil Solar's Book of Superpowers?
Yes.
I mean, I'm just fascinated by the title and how you came about that.
In 2017, the day after I finished writing Recreationism, which took a year of writing and compiling journal notes of my thoughts from the 2009 Kinja to the Kinja that was most recently evolved, I already had a huge relationship with children because I spoke to about 350 schools at that time. And I had on my long to-do list a children's book, but in all actuality, I never read a children's book. So I decided in Barnes and Nobles in Brooklyn on Borough Hall, Barnes and Nobles, for anyone that's in New York, I went over to the children's section after Googling the top 10 children's book of all time, and after the Harry Potter editions, got down to Dr. Seuss and then Charlotte's Web. And I was like, wow, that's familiar. So I read Charlotte's Web, and after, I'm gonna be completely honest, after reading it, I loved it. It was the 60th edition, but in my mind, I was like, I can do better than that. And the reason why is because I felt there were certain subliminal messages in the book that put these labels on men and women. Like the Charlotte was dainty, her brother had the gun. And so because of me realizing how these little impressions get put on us from children that turn us into adults that's not living in our truth, that was just the seed that was planted. But literally after that seed being planted, did a meditation one night and woke up the next day with the idea of turning the solar system into a character. And wanting to have it be a global idea, I wanted the solar system I wanted the book to be speaking from the solar system's mind. So Little Solar, and the theme of the book was the solar system is writing in its journal, and it's so happy about all the things that are going on within its universe that include growth. But the only place where growth is not constant is on the planet Earth. And it's because these humans that are so wise, once they get over a certain age, they start going against each other instead of in that happy mode the way they were when they were small. So what Little Solar, it's not his. I actually have a woman's voice on bookofsuperpowers.com because I believe creation came from Mother Earth. I believe women are the leaders, men are what decided to switch the script, and now got women not feeling the power that they deserve. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, thank you.
That's a whole other podcast, my friend.
That's a whole other podcast that I appreciate so much, right?
It's real, but basically the expedition is to go to each continent and find a preteen or mini adult that's under teenage years that at least has 6 of the 7 superpowers that help the solar system expand for billions of years. And so, for example, one of those stops is in Sydney, Australia, with a young lady named Constance that's 9 years old, and she's missing her power of choice. She has the rest of the powers, but her grandfather died, and because she really wasn't around him as much, she felt guilty. And so in each continent, there's a conversation between Little Solar and that child. He enters into their world through a dream, and it's been received so positively. Over 15 schools have bought it for all of their kids. Wow. And what I'm hearing from parents is that it is so crucial. I love how you have created something that all kids can relate to, that's not in a religious tone, that allows them to hear these conversations and grow. And you're talking about really deep concepts, but in such a simple way that's letting them understand. So from self-care to the power of silence. It's just a really, I'm gonna be honest, after the meditation that I started in 2015 every night and putting myself more into an alpha and data mode as far as my brain waves, my creativity level has just boosted through the roof. And I'm like, that's 3 books finished, but I have 8 books written total and like at least another 10 ideas. Like I'm in a position, but what I'm doing now is putting more focus on marketing my company, because you can create all day, but without getting it out there,
Yeah.
you know, you have a bunch of beautiful projects with nobody taking advantage of them. So
Right.
what COVID has helped me do is now put more focus on marketing, and some systems have been put in place to help. This is a primary example of one where I'm going to help spread this joy and love to more people throughout the world. So, but yeah, Little Solar's Book of Superpowers.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. Kids certainly need those messages, inspiration. You know, our foundation focuses on women. That's our main focus. But then children, we feel like they are the generations to come. They are what will change the world. So if we don't start when they're little to give them the inspiration and the messaging that they can do these things and that they have superpower, you know, we're not going to ever change the story. We have to change the story. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So Kinja, with your book, Recreationism, the art of shaping reality, which has, you know, had a lot of success. Well, my first question is, if I purchase the book and read it, do the changes happen through osmosis? Because I would like to have abs too. So that's question number 1.
Then that's for her
That's a
friend.
wrong
That's for her
answer,
friend.
Kinja. Yeah, it wasn't even for me. It was for a friend of mine who's not on this show right now, I'm telling you.
Her friend just sent her that question to ask.
That's right. Because besties protect each other, I'm telling you.
That's right.
Okay. So totally kidding. My first question is, where did that lifestyle come from? The lifestyle in the book.
It was in 2009 when I already was loving what I did for a living, which is the 4th pillar, the purpose pillar. And they weren't pillars at the time, but now I can look back on it. And when I constructed it, I saw those were the 4 commonalities in this last 11 years. But once I started focusing on my health with understanding what I needed to do to help reduce the extra mass that was on my body that was not in alignment with what my body was trying to do, and then understanding where that came from, why I was addicted to food, why I was addicted to the alcohol, with the mixture of learning all these new things. When I went over my journals, I saw all these nights, these were the 4 commonalities that have been prevalent over these years. Like I went from a 300-pound guy in 2009 that was only competing with people, trying to get more better at selling, not really worrying about my health, to 4 years later being 185 pounds, accepting these 2 awards and not even realizing how it happened. And then, you know, getting the opportunity to talk to crowds and then making a choice to stop making $900 a year to sell books. Like, who does that? And I realized I was on this whole nother journey that I would never have went on if these 4 things weren't being worked on simultaneously. My emotional intelligence pillar is what had me step away on faith. You know, like knowing that as long as you do what you're supposed to do, you are going to win. Now, to piggyback on the first point we made, yes, mathematically, I knew that I could live comfortably for the rest of my life if nothing ever worked. But it's easy for somebody to say you could do that, but no, it takes strength to go away from knowing you can make almost $1 million a year to knowing that you don't know where, no matter what you have, if you are able to detach from making to just creating, that takes emotional intelligence. And most people could never even fathom that situation. I compare that to like Oprah when she stopped her show and went into the network and lost this money. And people are like, why would you stop your show? You know, it's easy for her to do because she has this money. No, when you are at a position and you step away because you know there's something else calling you, you don't know exactly what it is, but you feel it and you go for it, that takes emotional dedication and the fact that you're willing to bet on yourself. You know what I mean? So that's what led to the 4 pillars. Is I have been working on those things constantly, and this year has been one of the best years of my life, because without me being able, all my speaking engagements canceled, forcing me in the house, I had to work on my pillars even more. So I've been able to learn so much more. And that's why I do have compassion for all the people that don't work on their pillars, that are letting the media instill these things into their mind and having them go against each other. I just pray for them, and I do my best to put good energy into the air, because right now we're in a position where people are not following their internal narrative. Their narrative is being dictated from people that might not have their best interest at heart.
Yeah, wow. So powerful. I asked this question of all of our guests because I am always fascinated to know the answer. So here's your turn, Kinja. What do you hope your legacy will be?
That every single thing that this gentleman has attempted to put into the earth, he took it upon himself to master it and be a student of it within himself first. That's just simple alignment. You know, when I went to China and that master was teaching us, he had 43 years of practice, and he did everything in front of us. He made sure we ate before he ate. And I just remembered I never saw mastery and student combined at such a level. And it inspired me to want to serve at the highest level, but I also have to be the greatest example of what I'm trying to help people see, so that I can be in pure alignment. There's never a scenario where I'm looking at y'all and then the computer go down and then I'll pull out a cigarette, or pull out a drink and do something that's not in alignment with my message. You know, I'm talking about me. So I just love to be, this is Kinja on and off camera. And at the end of the day, you know, every time we saw him, he was the person that I read about in this book, and he's just kept raising the bar within himself. It might have been too much for me, but he was living in his truth, and I respect him for doing it.
Wow, that's powerful, Kinja. Guess what? You're doing it, my friend. You really are. You are absolutely living your truth and showing us that. You're walking the talk, and I think that's what attracts me to you all the time, because when I hear you speak, and every single time I'm mesmerized by your message, it is so profound and so deep and so personal, and yet you avail yourself to share it, and so that is legacy. I love asking this question because I think that so oftentimes people think the legacy is for the rich and famous, but we all create legacy in our own special way. And I think it's important that we think about it, and that we are honing into that, knowing what the end in mind is, and working alongside with that. So I so appreciate you. Thank you so very much for being part of this program and sharing your truth and your journey. I know we will have you back because you have so much more to share. I hope you'll say yes every single time. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
This was wonderfully inspiring today, Kinja. I'm a little disappointed. Well, my friend is going to be disappointed about the osmosis thing with the book, but I'll let her down gently. So I know you have a special offer for our audience, so why don't you go ahead and share that, and then let everyone know where we can find you, besides on our wonderful podcast.
Well, first things foremost, KDIXON at KinjaDixon.com. The first 10 people that see this podcast and email me with the subject line, sassy, all right, you will get your choice of any one of my 3 books. This was the first one that goes over the handbook if you're in sales and want to have a nice little simple plan on how to communicate without pushing an agenda on someone, but being able to politely recommend the process. This book took 14 years of expertise and ended up with me doing something that never has been done in the world, which led to my retirement, Universal Talk Laws, 98 pages. Or you could pick the Recreationism, 365-page manual.
Amazing
not
book,
only,
by the way. I
sorry?
read it. I read it back and front to cover, and it's amazing. So please get that one.
And this is also has 21 of my most transformative client stories in there, redefinitions, in the mind moments from their journeys. But this is a life manual. May be too much for the person that's not ready to work on all pillars, but if you are, this is what you would recommend. Or the children's manual, Little Solar's Book of Superpowers, with illustrations. It's unbelievable, a 150-page journey that Little Solar takes throughout the globe to meet these 7 mini adults, 1 in each continent. If you want to go on an exploration for your child, this was it. And we're in talks to have this possibly turned into a cartoon or some things as well. So some things are looking really, really good. So first 10 people to email me, just put which book, address, and it'll be shipped out to you from one of my shippers, and I'll actually send it with a little handwritten message to you. And that's my gift to you and your world. I'm on Kinja Dixon at Instagram, Kinja Dixon at YouTube, and at the end of the day, by just typing my name in Google or the name of any one of these books, it'll direct you to where you could get it if you have any desire to dive deeper. And on YouTube, really quickly, I'm in 28th episode of the Decade series where I travel the globe. I've been to Brazil, I've been to Europe, I've been to Aruba, I've been to Arizona, Utah, but I go all over the world where places have beautiful landscapes, and I share about how the old me and the new me, a little 2 to 3 minute message of correlating nature to how recreationism aligns. So you can subscribe on my YouTube page, and that's something I'll be delivering every single week. In eternity, it allows me to travel, go into these beautiful locations, and serve at the highest level and meet people all over the world. So I'm serving, I'm loving, and I'm just honored to be on this podcast with you all. And I pray that we can continue to serve at higher levels together. I'm here, and I love y'all. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Kinja. That's an amazing offer. Can you go ahead and say your email address so they can get that?
KDIXON, K Dixon at KinjaDixon.com. KINJADIXON.com. K Dixon at KinjaDixon.com. First 10 people.
Show notes.
We'll put that on the show notes as well.
Oh, okay, perfect.
They'll have that, but thank you so much for that. All right, I know you can't join us on this, but we always end the program with putting on our lipstick attitude, the name of the show. So
okay.
You'll just have to watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some cocoa shea butter for my head. Here we go.
Okay,
all right.
Do that. Put whatever it is. Lady, we put on our lipstick attitude as our war paint. It symbolizes strength, resiliency, and courage.
Yes.
And life throws us so many monkey wrenches that we need a reminder that we are resilient and that we will overcome. So Go ahead, ladies, put on your lipstick attitude no matter what.
Yes. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. Always, you are just amazing. We love you to pieces, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, Kinja.